Cyril Ramaphosa is delivering a eulogy at the funeral service of the late veteran Judge Maluleke, who died early in this week.
His steadfast beliefs should also be a source of strength and faith for us who are faced with the dilemmas, many dilemmas and moral conflicts. We have learned by his example that there is no greater fulfillment than giving our best in everything that we do. Many people have spoken about his work ethic. And his work ethic is what I would say should be our guidepost as we go about doing what we have to do and doing good for our people as a whole. Judge Maluleke did not tolerate people who were not honorable. He did not tolerate people who were unprincipled. Our country has lost an archetype of judicial grace and legal sophistication. And despite his great successes, he was never boastful, always humble. He managed to stay humble throughout a lifetime of personal successes, and he did all this with humor and with grace. As a judge, he never abused his position because he always sought to show empathy for all people. It was never in his nature to scorn, to intimidate, to look down upon others, to humiliate. That was not in his nature. In December last year, when we marked his retirement, I spoke of the outstanding role that he had played in the struggle for a free and democratic and just South Africa. I recalled that, like many of his peers, Judge Maluleke joined the legal profession at a time and in a place where the law existed as a means to oppress, to dispossess, and to exploit. He joined the legal profession at a time when the gulf between the law and justice was as pronounced as the divide between black and white. It was a very dangerous time in our country. It was a time of unjust laws and unaccountable courts, as well as unaccountable judges. It was in this harsh environment that he and others, former Deputy Chief Justice Judge Maluleke, formed one of the pioneering black legal firms in South Africa, a firm that I'm happy to say still exists. Given this environment, but given also his character, much of his work was dedicated to defending people in political trials. It was work that brought material reward, or rather, it was work that did not bring any material reward, and that was frowned upon by many in the established profession. But it did earn him the respect and the admiration of many activists, their families, and the communities on whose behalf they fought. The efforts of Judge Maluleke and others like him not only made a huge difference in the lives of those they defended, but they helped to sustain a conception of justice that stood in stark contrast to the law of the time. And in doing so, they contributed in no small measure to the principles, to the ethos and the values that underpin the practice of law today. It was to the efforts of people like Judge Maluleke that today we have a constitution that is founded on the imperative to build a new society in our country that is based on equality and the protection of human dignity. It is a matter of great satisfaction that he dedicated the last 2 decades of his career to upholding, defending, and advancing this Constitution. And the work that he did has left many of his fingerprints on the dispensation that has now evolved and continues to evolve in our judicial jurisprudence. It must have brought him great joy to be on the bench in the formative years of a constitutional democracy for which he strived throughout his life and for which he had given so much. It must have brought great joy to him to be able to apply the law for the benefit of the poor, the marginalized, and the vulnerable. We were reminded of the case that he handled when one of our own had been thrown into the lion's den. And many of us had no doubt whatsoever in our minds that the judgment that he would write and pronounce would be on the side of justice and our people. As he departs from the world of the mortals, we must acknowledge that there is still much we need to do to ensure that all South Africans are fully able to enjoy the rights that are contained in our Constitution. As we bid him farewell, we say thank you, WOM. Thank you, GSS. Thank you, dear friend, mentor, and brother, for making dignity, warmth, love, and respect the defining hallmarks of your character. We thank you, great son of the Malulekes, for offering many of us your special gift of friendship. Our many interactions with you affirmed, enriched, and deepened our lives. We thank you for your service to our people and to the nation. And we thank Morumwe, the children, and his family for supporting him all the years he selflessly served our people. An eagle has soared to the heavens to watch us from above. We will gather the wood and rekindle the fire. Without being prophetic, one could say that GSS will live on through the lives of many of us who have been influenced by his example. He will live on through the great example that he set for all of us. For all of us here were so deeply touched by his life. Right now we may feel sad and diminished by his passing. Certainly his immediate family feels so, but many of us who knew him, knew of him, do feel it quite intensely. But let us not lose sight of how much he has enriched our lives by just being who he was. A husband, a father, a brother, a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. He lived a full life, putting his skills and his talents, his knowledge, his expertise to good use by being a great lawyer, a great public servant, and touching the lives of many with his thoroughness, thoughtfulness, sincerity, his passion, his compassion, and his concern. In his own way, he made our country a better place, even as we strive today to find our balance in our public affairs, and for this, his memory will always endure, never to be forgotten, especially by those whose lives he touched, and that goes for all of us. Go well, womb. Go well, brother. Kombela kuri uetlela urula ufamba kahle urungula lavan'wani va nga famba before ufamba. Hi ta tshama hi ku hleketa swinenenene, hi ta hleketa mintirho ya wena leswi u nga hi endlela swona. And for me, I thank you deeply, because much of what I know about serving people I learned from you. Thank you very much.
All right, those are the live funeral proceedings there of the late Judge George Maluleke. And of course, that was the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa taking the podium to speak on his behalf. Let's take a quick ad break. More news after that.